Are you anticipate?
Welcome to Deep Dive Daily.
What up? What up? What up? It is Tuesday, March 25th, and yeah, we're gonna talk mostly NBA today. But before we get in there, just got to shout out the most interesting thing going on in sports, Andy, and you're not gonna believe it, but it's the Miami Open of tennis, the second half of the Sunshine Double, currently being contested at Hard Rock Stadium, where the Dolphins play typically. It was unreal yesterday watching Zhao Fonseca. I know I'm not pronouncing his first name correctly. I don't know why.
Xiao?
Zhao. It's
Is
not.
this like-
It's like it's Joao or it's something else. But whatever the case, Fonseca, the Brazilian sensation, 18-year-old who just broke through, winning Buenos Aires, on the Golden Swing, was putting together a pretty impressive run, and then faced his toughest test to date, head-to-head against Mr. Alex de Minaur, who's been very on form this year. And if you missed any of that action at Miami yesterday, it was ridiculous. It sounded like there were 60,000 Brazilian fans pushed into that stadium, and they were like, it's just such organic passion for this kid's rise in the sport. I've never seen anything like this. Even people who were competent to Alcaraz, like if you want to compliment Alcaraz in terms of like how explosive his game is for such a young player, that's fine. Like people were like excited by Alcaraz. These people, I feel like, would freaking put their lives on the line. They would die for this kid. Yeah.
And I mean, this goes for a lot of sports too, but tennis being a little different with the individual nature of the sport. Obviously, you get this with little golf, and we talked about Ryder Cup the other day, and you have that with the home course advantage, what have you. But some of the best and most memorable matches are when like the crowd is either backing a player because it's their player nationally, or they turn on a player. Turning on a player is pretty fun too.
I love that.
Like there's been a couple matches where Fabio in Rome, a memorable one against Andy Murray where the crowd was just nuts. Speaking Andy Murray in that Olympic finals, the crowd was very much not pro Andy in that one. That was that Del Potro?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, that was a very fun crowd, but it is awesome when the crowd
Del
gets
Potro
behind a
in
player.
Rio, yeah. A lot of Argentinians there for that.
Yeah, when you get some crazy tennis fans, it is a ton of fun. And my girl,
Pagula, survive in
Pagula,
advance.
Survive in advance. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, she was fine. She's a healthy favorite against Raducanu tomorrow. Wait, is that tomorrow? Maybe the day after. Maybe the day after.
I think it's the day off. Yeah,
they're staggering them now. The scheduling is so difficult to keep up with. It's very, it's vexing. But yeah, in Miami today, a couple of lines that I just wanted to point out that I don't understand. Thomas Mahatch should be a bigger favorite against his countryman Jakub Mensik. I think that is a Mahatch victory.
He struggled a little with Riley, but Riley's playing well.
Yeah, Riley's playing well, and he's a very like Mahatch is the style of player he's always going to struggle with is your 7-footer. Yeah, yes. Mahatch is more of a mover. He's more of a clay player, but I think he can handle Mensik pretty comfortably here. People I know are high on Artur Fils, the young Frenchman, up against Alexander Zverev, who he has defeated in his career, but I think Zverev is actually rounding into enough form that I would make him the title favorite right now. Djokovic is laughably high against Musetti. Musetti, of course, was the guy that pushed him to 5 sets at the French Open last year. That should be war, and Djokovic likely loses, in my opinion. So I have some Musetti at some longer prices. And then the rest of the card looks pretty fair. But I think ultimately Miami is turning out to be much more entertaining than I was anticipating.
It's a good tournament. I don't know why you were down on it, but no, we'll.
It always just feels a little anticlimactic after Indian Wells for me for some reason.
They call it a double. It's the double for a reason.
Also, like I used to really like the scene watching it when it was in Biscayne Bay. You know,
they moved
like
it to Hard Rock.
you'd have random stuff like on like the first rounds when they were playing on the outside courts, like iguanas running around on the court and stuff. And now, yeah, they've moved it to the sterile hard court or the sterile hard.
Did we talk about that? And I
Designated
guess like there's probably people that live in Florida. I know there's people that live in Florida that listen to this. We got Giorgio.
Yeah.
I don't live in Florida. I've been to Florida plenty of times, but there was like a thing. It was a weather alert, but it said falling iguanas because they're cold blooded, and if it gets too cold, they just
Fall out of trees.
their bodily functions start to go down, and they like to climb, and they're heavy. Like I guess that's a thing. So if you've ever, I sound like one of those cheesy lawyers. Have you been hurt by an iguana? You are due for compensation. I would love to hear from somebody who has like had an iguana fall on them. That has to have happened to somebody, and it probably hurts. But I don't know. You got me thinking on that. Anyway, we'll move from one Miami to another. Good game tonight. I put. I might just because there's not a lot of college ball, and I'll probably watch TGL, but the Heat game tonight. Heat are a 10 seed right now, and just looking at who the play-in games are, it's crazy the disparity of like your 10 seed is 30 and 41, and and the Timberwolves are like the 8 right now. The Timberwolves would be in the play-in game right now because they forget how to play basketball when they play bad teams. Which is not great for your record, but still they're 40 and 32, which is 17, 18 games behind the 1 seed, but like 5 games behind the 2 seed. There's a ton of shit that's going to move in the next 2 weeks. And there's teams that are in the play-in game that might have home court for 2 rounds at this point if they go a little bit of a run.
In the West. Yeah.
Yeah, in the West. I do believe the Wolves have a fairly easy schedule, but like I said, it might be bad. They can't seem to they play down to their opponents quite a bit.
That's not a bad thing. Schedule imbalance is pretty aggressive right now as we have somewhere between 9 and 12 games remaining for these teams. And surely the most fascinating watch is who gets that 10 seed in the West, because one of the Suns or the Mavericks is going to be left on the doorstep. Suns with a really hard fought win last night. They have the toughest schedule left in basketball by an absolute country mile. It is not especially close. Dallas has a softer schedule, but it's also somewhat difficult. And Dallas now has Anthony Davis back, but even more importantly, PJ Washington back, who is playing really, really good ball right now. So Dallas and Phoenix is the most fun to follow, to see who lands in the 10 spot. Hopes and dreams of Toronto making it into the play-in, I think, are dead. They are very effectively finding ways to lose games against opponents that they have no business being in close games with. But it's their prerogative to do what's best for your franchise, I guess. I don't know if they're going to make their in-season win totals that I fired on. I'm feeling pretty depressed every time I'm watching Toronto, honestly, because they should be walking this thing in, and yet they're closing dogs to the Wizards, for fuck's sake. Like this is not good. They beat the Wizards, but still is 25 wins. We're gonna need a little bit of luck to get some of the big prices home for the Raptors. The real kind of angle on tonight's game, if you want my opinion, and we could talk about Heat Warriors for a brief second. Full strength Warriors. I know Steph Curry he's questionable on the official injury report, which I think was why you saw this thing open around 4.5. No other way to square that at 4.5 unless you assume the market was treating that as true 50-50 for Curry. And then the beginning of the tip to 5.5 to me was sort of the market hearing about him at practice. He looked good. Apparently no issues. This is just a bruise. Like, I think he's probably just going to play through this. And so the market going from 50-50 to like 70-30, 80-20, I think reflected that shift that we've seen from the open. I think he just plays. I think this is a good spot for Golden State, who is at full strength. The Heat are effectively at full strength, but there's no way you can rate that team as kind of top, a better than an average team right now. My heat rating right now is currently a minus 0.9, so just almost minus 1 point as rostered. And my Warriors team rating right now is the fourth best in basketball. There's been like this rotating cast of who is the fourth best team in basketball. Is it the Nuggets? Is it the Lakers? Is it the Timberwolves? Like it's been kind of is it the Knicks? Like, people have kind of shuffled through that spot all year long. And right now it is pretty clearly the Golden State Warriors, in my opinion. They are hovering around a +7 net rating for me. And again, like this is absolute eons away from the Thunder, who are currently rating as almost a 13, which is
that's what I was curious.
Amazing.
What's your 2 and 3?
Cavs and
order?
Celtics.
No, but
Celtics,
which order?
Celtics and Cavs.
Okay.
I have the Celtics slightly ahead of the Cavs, but and I have not been moving the Cavs down, even though they have been trying to get people to prove that they should be moved down with the way they've been playing lately. I'm keeping that pretty fixed because like they have nothing to play for at all, period. Like they're the 1 seed in the East. Like they're not going to get run down. So it's good that they're kind of, I think, taking their foot off the gas a little bit. They just got to not drift off the side of the road into the ditch, but I think it's fine for them to coast this thing in, and I wouldn't change my number on them. But yeah, the Warriors are currently your fourth best team in basketball, in my opinion, and their remaining schedule is kind of in the middle to lower end in terms of difficulty. They don't really have any difficult schedule spots proper. And I think they're going to compile a bunch of wins here down the stretch. The form that they've been playing with recently, I think, carries this team to a Pacific Division title. And this goes hand in hand with wanting to basically just say Lakers can fuck off. Like that was an absolutely miserable second half performance from them. 2 games in a row, the Lakers have had a meaningful rest advantage over their opponents, and they let the Bulls get to 145 and embarrass them in the fourth quarter at home. And then they let the Magic run away from them when the Magic haven't been able to put together competitive half-court offense all freaking season. I am very, very, very cold on this Lakers team right now, and I don't know if this is an effort thing or what is going on there, or if it was like everybody was expecting the shoe to drop on their defense and it finally has. Like there was some shooting luck that must have been happening that was kind of propping up that defense before and after the Anthony Davis Luka Doncic trade, and now all that shooting luck has completely evaporated as everybody is making every 3 against them. But the Lakers right now, to me, rate as a plus 2.5. So this is a huge gap between the Warriors and Lakers in terms of current team rating, and I would put this as 50-50 between these two teams. Well, I'm going to say 40-40 between these two teams with 20% chance that the Clippers do something weird as far as making a market for the Pacific Division. And I caught some 4-1 Warriors pack winners yesterday, which was, I think, fortuitous timing. You can still get some 3-1s out there if you shop around, but yeah, that should be closer to plus 200. Actually, should be closer to plus 150 in my opinion.
You haven't even brought up Houston. Where do they land in your power ratings right now?
Houston is kind of in the miasma with all of the other teams in the West. All the other guys. Like there's not a huge difference
currently
between
in the 2 seed, but again, it's like the difference between them and like the what have you. The
Timberwolves, Nuggets.
Wolves,
Okay,
Clippers, Grizzlies, Nuggets.
So for me, the Rockets are behind the Nuggets and the Timberwolves. They're ahead of the Grizzlies and the Lakers, but barely. And then there's a big gap to get down to the Kings. The Clippers for me are in that mix with the Timberwolves and the Nuggets also, actually. So I would have right now, if I'm sorting the West, it goes Thunder, Warriors, Nuggets, Clippers, Timberwolves, Rockets, Lakers, Grizzlies, and that rounds out your top 8. So I think the Rockets are going to, even with home court advantage, if they're the 2, 3, or 4 seed, I think the Rockets are going to be first round dogs. independent of opponent. The one opponent they could draw where they would be favorites is if they're the 4-5 against the Grizzlies or the 3-6 against the Grizzlies. But even that might change between now and then as the Grizzlies get healthier, because my number now kind of doesn't really capture what could be a full strength team come playoffs. So the Rockets could be the 8th best of 8 in the West when the dust settles.
You can't bet on them in the Golden Nugget.
Yeah, that's true.
I learned that one time. Like, why I
Tillman.
can't find this one game? Yeah, because Tillman has ownership. All right, let's quick run through award stuff.
Sure.
Then, because we had the love him or hate him. I know some people think he talks his book a little much on award stuff, but we love Jay. And he has, I got to find the tweet again. Now I lost it. See, I pull up these tweets, and if I have Twitter open, because sometimes Twitter is my job. Like, literally, I'm trying to find a tweet I'd bookmarked to put into like a newsletter. And I open Twitter with that intention, and then I see something, and then I just go ahead and it's like 10 minutes later, I'm like, what was I even working on?
Why was I trying to find?
I'm watching like tennis clips. All right, so he put out fares for the 6 big awards. 7 actually now, because we have Clutch, which, for fuck's sake, who knows what that means. Although I like that the NBA added an award, I guess, because it makes it maybe more likely that the NFL will think about that and add most improved football player, so we don't have this conversation about comeback every year. But he has SGP. I'm going to call him SGP. That's more fun. SGA at 95% plus. Same with Castle for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
Are those just kind of locks?
Yep, done.
That happens. I mean, we only have 2 weeks left. Your opinion on DPOI, because I think that's the most.
What were Jay's numbers? And also, real quick on Jay talking in his book, like, yeah, obviously, like that it can.
We all have to,
but even more than that, like, find someone else who's like putting out what they think their fares are. Like this, like it doesn't happen very often. And if you're going to put out your opinion, you should defend it. So the fact that he's out there defending it and kind of, is he cherry picking sometimes when some guys have a good night? Obviously, but that's the way that the awards work.
Well, yeah, you don't tweet out like your guy. Oh man,
three for 8,
3 for 16 from deep over the last 2 days. Like you don't tweet that out. All right, so he has Draymond minus 180, Mobley 220, plus 220 in the field, 19-1.
Yeah, I think this one's done. I think Draymond wins. I think it's over.
Remember he punched a guy?
I do remember.
Remember he choked Rudy like day one?
Hey, man. You want to talk about in the moment? He caught a lot of shit, but ultimately, was it better for the Warriors to move off a pool? I would say yes. Like that kind of set in motion a set of events that led to the Warriors being the 4th best team in the West right now, instead of a rebuild centered around Jordan Poole, which is what the Wizards are. So, I think ultimately the things broke correctly, right?
Yeah.
But so the real answer for the DPOI is that like Mobley's case was always a little fragile. He was put up at the top next to JJJ in the vacuum of Wemby without really a lot of people thinking hard about it. And then JJJ gets hurt. And so then he stood alone and people were like, well, I guess this is just happening. But to me, his case was always a little fragile. And I was a little like not, especially convicted that everybody was going to see it, because the counting stats weren't really obviously there. The advanced metrics weren't obviously there. And the Cavs defense isn't obviously great. Like they're not running away with defense in the league like OKC is.
And obviously both teams have been successful, but some of the success of the defense for the Warriors definitely helping.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still got it. Draymond still got it.
Draymond still got it. He's the fact that he is at the top of all of the publicly clickable all-in-one metrics for defense, right? Because like you'll hear all of the voters say this about DPOI. Like, I rely on the opinions of the coaches and the assistants that I talk to around the league, because defense is very difficult to like have an opinion about just looking at the counting stats, right? And what they mean by talking to assistants and coaches throughout the league is that they're looking at the advanced all-in-one metrics and sorting by defensive rating, and that's how they're coming up with their opinion, because there's not long conversations being had with the assistant of the Spurs and the guy covering the Spurs about, man, who is it really difficult to prepare for? Draymond Green. Oh, okay. I think I'm going to consider him for DPO. No, they're sorting EPM. They're sorting Darko. This is the way that they are fine. Maybe they're sorting Basketball Reference like defensive win shares or D rating. Like it could be that dumb. But it's.
I was wondering about that too. Like, I got to go find Mike and Nori after the game to ask him about Draymond.
Yeah, no way.
I think they just say stuff. You say stuff to say stuff.
Of course, but yeah. So that I think like now the fact that
That's the
the Warriors,
assistant coach I know.
yeah, is it?
That's the only assistant I can name because he's awesome.
I think that's most of the assistants I could name have now moved up to head coach. So I think you're right. Anyway, the general kind of path forward here is the Warriors finish with a top 5 defense. It's just fucking over. Now, Draymond Green's case is also a hair fragile because if he gets hurt at all, then he will miss. If sprains an ankle, gets kicked in the nuts, who knows? Like he could miss a couple of games and then all of a sudden, poof, his case is up in smoke. Like that's all. He is on the line of qualifying. So you have to be very, you just gotta
I like that as an added wrinkle, adding the games because it does create a little drama down the end. All right, most improved Dyson and Cade.
Yeah,
he has
I admire Jay's hard work in this one, but I think he's paddling upstream, and the reason is there is a silent block of people who don't give a fuck about this award in the voting block, and they literally just give it to a guy who is a first-time All-Star and don't think any harder about it. They'll look at his stats year over year and be like, yeah, that's enough of an increase in points. You got it, buddy.
Yeah.
Like that's
10.2 to 12.8. Look at you.
Nobody was really thinking hard about Maxey last year. By the time we got to the end of the year, they were like, yeah, Maxey was a first-time All-Star. That's an improvement. Good job, buddy. Like that was like he went wire to wire because he was the only first-time All-Star, and Cade is a first-time All-Star. And honestly, I'm surprised that Mobley is not a bigger factor in this market. I have some huge prices on Mobley there, and I'm going to be pretty annoyed when he finishes like 5th or whatever, something stupid. But Dyson Daniels to me feels like your clear second runner in this one. And I think Jay's fair is counting on there being a portion of the voting block that does not put Cade on award ballots at all because he's a former number one overall pick.
Yeah.
But like, I think the people who are going to find a reason not to put him at the top are still going to put him on the ballot because like, there's just not a lot of feel good. Look at this guy who was grinding, finally stepping up to be a difference maker, right? Those stories aren't really very present this year because of injuries, because they didn't happen. Like the Norm Powell story, like just there's not a lot of that. I think Daniels is probably your clear second choice, but I also don't think he's going to flip enough of the silent majority to win. So I'm in disagreement with Jay on this price. I would have it more like 66-33. Yeah, 66-33 Cade right now, unfortunately.
I forgot to throw Kenny Atkinson in the locks category.
I disagree with him being a lock. That of like the
75-25 then, or what?
I would put that one at like 80-20. And the 20 for me is clearly Mark Daigneault. Daigneault can win 70 games. He is going to be favored by 10 points in every game down the stretch. They're favored by 11 on the road today against the Kings. And I like the Thunder tonight.
Well, if you like Mark Daigneault, I think you should maybe pop over to Arizona or have someone place a bet at DraftKings for you.
A massive price.
200 to 1.
It's a massive price. And this makes no sense to me because like he's the best coach in basketball. He is. Like, okay, and he's gonna finish with like a 5 or 6 game gap over the Cavaliers for the best record. Okay, like I'm not 100% sure why this is such
I
a
might put 10
lock
bucks on this.
for Kenny Atkinson. I know that, and Bickerstaff is currently your second choice, but the Pistons are gonna have nights where they suck between now and the end of the year, and they're gonna finish 6th. A 70-win team for the Thunder is like that is a momentous accomplishment, and I can absolutely see a world where people like are scratching their chins like, do we give it to the 60-win Cavs or the 70-win Thunder? And I could see them choosing the later. But that's my pipe dream. If I could, and maybe I'll use I'll use my social clout, which is massively diminished. I'll use my clout to try to campaign for Dayton Nose to go back to back.
You to the top. You took a gap year there. All right, the last two: Pritchard 1-3, Beasley 3-1.
I've been sitting on a 30-1 Malik Beasley with hopes and dreams that Pritchard was going to continue his fade and slide, but it's not going to happen. I think it's pretty much just over. So yeah, I give up. 6 man of the year is just going to be wire to wire Pritchard. That little campaigning clown who's probably the 8th most important Celtic. He's just going to win.
8th man of the year.
Yeah.
And then do you have opinions on
me.
Clutch? Or are you staying away from Clutch because it's
I have a lot of Brunson, and I have less Trae Young, and I have 0.0 Jokic. All right, let's hit the music. We got to go. I'm getting a phone call. You have a phone call. We should check back in tomorrow. Sound good?
It's going to be funny. Yeah, we will. We'll see you guys tomorrow. But it'll be funny if Clutch turns out to be like Offensive Player of the Year in the NFL, where it's like, hey, you almost won MVP. And they just start, and it just goes to like Jokic.
All right. Well, hopefully that doesn't happen because I'm